Hello, everyone. We are coming from the French part of Switzerland, and then, as you know, we speak very bad German, so we switch to English. Professor Schwere gave us a perfect introduction to our speech because we are targeting the on-the-job training for people. We had a project where we worked with industries, and the trick or the issue was to train the people while they are on the job. So first of all, I'd like to give the speech to Elsa, my partner, who is specialist in human relationship and human resources. And afterwards, I will give you a short presentation of the technology that we developed and the experiment that we did. Okay. So first of all, I give the speech to Elsa. Doesn't work?
It works, yeah, okay. As an HR specialist and with Philippe, which is a professor in computer science, we bring our strengths together to think about how we can face all these HR challenge, how we can bring an answer to those HR challenge, because so how to stay professionally relevant, how to close the future skills gap, how to stay agile in uncertain times, and so on. And what we see is that it's very easy to answer why it is important to answer those questions, but how we answer that, it's much more complicated. So, most of the studies tell us that 50% of the job will change in the future, in the 5 future years. So maybe as an HR, you may already work on all the employability topic. What we learn in these times is very special, because in the VUCA, so volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous times, people are more and more willing to face those issues. So how we deal with that? We had a context while so we analyzed first of all the competencies of the company. We analyzed the context and what will be the new activities, and then in these new activities we lead a very deep skill analysis of what are the skills that are existing in the company and what are the skills that will be needed in the company. So for that, we also been helped with all the business intelligence of the company, and it helps us to take strategic decision on how will be the new activities. And identifying the new skills, and according to that, we will be able to propose a very innovating training tools. So for that, we will be helped with all the main andragogy topics on how, our answer, our proposal take the advantage to that it is relevant for job and skills oriented. Also, the sessions are very short, so that means that people will be because people are less and less time to learn, and also what we see is that if you repeat already what people know, you will lose your audience. So it is very important for us to have a short time of learning that is very job-oriented, and that you don't need to learn what you already know. So the goal is really to teach It's not to teach, but to make the learner learn. And what we see that usually the answer that HR brings is with digital learning, it's usually MOOC. But what we observe is that 80% of the student and the learner drop out the session while they had the intention to attend. So I'll give you.
Okay. So basically, you understood that. The problem is the following. We would like to quickly adapt the training system to the needs of the companies. So for example, we work with a watchmaker, and these people have to change the way the people work because automatic machines are coming. For example, to design the watches, to clean the watches or whatever the job they have to do. And because of the intelligence machine and automatic machine, these jobs will change, as Professor Schweri just said. Okay, so what we did is the following. We watch what's going on in a given industry. For example, you're working in the machine industry, then we watch what's going on in the machine industry. So we can foresee what will come in the next 2 years, for example. And then we design a training that will target the changes in the job. So to be agile, we need to have a training system which is easy to change, which is easy to adapt. And this is why we turn to micro-learning. Micro-learning, in a sense, is very easy. Short lecture, 1 to 3 minutes, that you can take anywhere, anytime. It's distributed on your mobile, and then anywhere, for example, in the bus station, at a coffee shop, you could just get your mobile and train yourself for 1 or 2 minutes. That's exactly what we targeted as a system. And then, with this system, we equipped our companies so that they could distribute the new learning, the new lecture to the people very easily. And why is the system agile? It is agile because the lecture only 3 minutes in length. So for example, if there is something obsolete that you are teaching, then you just remove the micro lecture and you put a new one at its place. So because we would like, as Elsa just said, because we would like the people to learn, our job is not to teach. It is for the learner to learn. So what we did, we studied the best training strategies from the training sciences, from the education sciences. And for example, these are the 5 most cited techniques to train the people. Okay, repetition, of course. Everyone knows that if you want to learn, for example, myself German, I should repeat. Spaced learning, testing, pre-testing, interleaving. Okay, these are the best techniques that are, referenced everywhere. And what we did is we designed a very specific micro-learning format. This is the format of the micro-lecture. Does it work? Yes. Okay, we have 4 components. Well, we can see that. We have 4 components. First of all, we have the content. This is the core of the lecture, right? Then we have the summary. The summary is just a summary of the content. This is 30 seconds. This is 3 minutes maximum. Then we have a test with answer and a pre-test. These are the same test, but this one comes without the answer. This one comes with the answer. And what we do is the following. We send the pre-test to the people. Then they get interested by the subject. But of course, since they haven't attended the lecture, then they don't know the subject. But they will be interested by the subject. Then we send the content. After a while, we send the summary. And in the end, we send the test. And when I say we send, in fact, we have designed a system to do that. We worked with an e-learning company in Geneva, which has developed an LMS, a learning management system, when you just put all the lecture into it, and then you could just send the lecture to the people through their mobile phone. That's what I designed there. But on our side, we developed the scheduler, which can be programmed. And this scheduler can send the modules with a specific sequence to the people. And on top of that, we were able to monitor the learning speed of the people, and we could adapt the scheduling of the lecture to the learning speed of the people, so that everyone in a company could get the lecture at their own speed. So that if, for example, they are very busy in a week, then they could lower the rhythm of learning. And then maybe next week, go a bit higher rhythm, okay? So basically what we have is a kind of pipeline in which we send the lecture to the people at their own pace. And these lectures are made of the 4 modules I just presented. And by a wise sending of the right modules at the right moment, we increase the retention rate of the people, the memorization rate of the people. This is the top of our system. It's a system to monitor the learning of the people. Here is the lecture number, and this is the strategy that the learner used to read the modules. I don't want to go any deeper in the semantics of this strategy, but let's say it's just the way the people are reading the modules. Okay, we can monitor. This is an actual graph. It's not a fake. It's an actual graph. So we see that at the beginning, the higher you go, the better your learning strategy. So at the beginning, the guy went slowly understanding how to cope with the lecture. Then slowly it understood, and then the strategy was better. And we could do that for whatever student, for whatever learner. Then the course designer could just monitor the way the people are learning. They could watch this kind of graph and say, oh, we are there. So the guy doesn't know exactly how to use the system to learn better. Then we could give specific advice to these people so that they increase their learning speed. So we did an experiment because I have a very nice environment to do an experiment, which is the Geneva School of Business and Administration. It's Fachhochschule Geneva. And then I transform, I'm a software engineer, I'm teaching software engineering. So I transform my 3rd-year undergrad software engineering course using micro-lecture. What I did is the following. I had these weekly lecture, the big form on the top. The weekly lecture, 2 hours a week, okay? Then I split these weekly lecture into 14 micro-learning elements that we sent every morning to the people. Every morning, the student would receive the modules from our system. And they will receive it every day of the week, including the weekends. It was a bit tough for them, but it was an experiment anyway. So we did that. So every day they would receive the modules. Basically, they received the pre-test in the morning, then they received the content at noontime. So they were able to just think about the topic and then get the content at noontime. Then we sent the resume, the summary, next day, so that you have a night's sleep between the content and the summary, and still the next day they got the test. And this was interleaved. I mean, all the lecture were scheduled like that. So these are the modules of a lecture. Then they were scheduled like that. So when they would learn a topic, they would get the test for the previous topic. So they were all the time thinking about different things, which is very good as far as learning strategy is concerned. And these are the results. We did 2 experiments, 2 semesters, the fall semester of last year and the spring semester this year, and we will do again an experiment this fall semester. Exams results. This is the key metric. Exams results, basically, the students got the same mark to the exams, to my exams. But of course, the cohort are not the same. I mean, 1 year batch of students may be a bit different from the next year's batch of students, of course. So it's not scientific and sound statistics, but it gave us some idea. So the exam results were similar to last year. But we did a survey, and then 100% of the students, not 99, 100% of the students think microlearning improves learning. 74% of the students spent less time studying with our system. How did we measure that? Easy. Usually when you teach the weekly lecture, you have 2 hours lecture and at least 1 hour study at home. Then I asked the students, did you spend less, equal, or more than 3 hours a week with this system? And 74% of them said we spent less time. 74% thought that learning is easier with micro-learning. Of course, these people are always with mobile phone. You know, the young people, they are always on the mobile phone. So it was easier for them to get the content using their mobile phone. And finally, 50% use mobile learning, anywhere learning, because 50% use laptop. You know, not all the people are easy with mobile learning, so 50% use traditional learning, I would say. So, in summary, our solution let us adapt the content to the actual skills of the learner, because we could send the micro lecture according to the skill gaps. We could adapt the rhythm of the lecture to the workload of the learner, and then we could coach the learner on the best learning strategy. By coaching, I mean, we have this graph, we understand the way the people read the modules and get the content, and then we could coach them. That's what we did by hand, in fact. My assistant watched the curve, watched the graph, and then send an email to the people, you better read the summary before the test, etc., so that we could get a better behavior as far as learning is concerned. So this is what we implemented. We were very happy to see that we got these results, and the next step, this fall, we will implement that system in the 2 companies we are working with, which is the Richemont group, the watchmaker, the big watchmaker Richemont group, and with the SIG, which is the people in Geneva that distribute the energy. I don't know, industrial service, or I don't know what's the name in English. People that distribute the energy. So these people will, in fact, do a project in their companies to train the people that have to move in the company, then to move their skill using our system. Okay? I give the speech to Elsa. Of course, if you're interested, we are ready to discuss with you. And well, we strongly think that this adaptive system is the way to go for professional and on-the-job training. Okay.
Also, what we see is that during this project, we involve all the workers and all the employees in this transformation to lead the change. Because it's one thing to have good tools; it's another to that the worker use it. You know, so they have to be very convinced that it's good for them. So that's why we involve them in all the skills analysis, in all the business intelligence also, how the job will evolve. So that's why also a big key in this project.
Let me join you then for our questions.
Yes.
For the question session. Thank you so much for your lecture. It's most appreciated. An interesting approach. How did your students react, actually? How did your students react when they got your messages?
Well, in fact, they didn't have any choice. We just said, better you to do that.
But did they give you feedback?
Yes. Yes.
What was the feedback they gave you?
For example, we could see the feedback on the graph. So for example, we saw the people having some kind of learning strategy, and then after a while, they just get back to the right strategy. So we did that.
But were they happy with that? That's the big question. Were they happy? Would that be their method of learning of choice as compared to an actual lecture with you?
What should I say?
The result speaks.
My job is to get them learn something, right? So if they are there to learn something, they were happy. If they are just there to spend some hours in a nice environment, then of course maybe they weren't. But I mean, if we go back to this survey, 100% thought that learning was easier with microlearning, 100%. So basically, I would say that they were happy because, of course, as you understood it, this year we did the experiment during the COVID problem. So everyone in every university in Switzerland had to do the distance teaching, distance learning. And we had that in place. So we just pushed the button and it worked. And then it worked perfectly because basically the student could learn anytime they wish. While in other institutions, they would do streaming, and you have to attend the lecture at the time it was scheduled in the week. Our system, we just send the lecture every day, and then the student could attend the lecture at their own pace.
So to provide context here, what you're seeing is 100% of students think that microlearning improves learning as compared to a traditional Zoom distant learning lecture.
Exactly.
Right.
Blocked 2 hours lecture.
But we don't have a comparison as to traditional university learning. We don't have that yet. Is that correct?
No. Because, as I said, exam results were similar to last year's.
Yes.
I gave the same lecture last year using face-to-face, right? So the people still had face-to-face training just a semester before. So they knew exactly what it meant to attend a 2 hours face-to-face lecture. And this is why they appreciated microlearning, because they really hadn't to come to the university. They could learn at home or anywhere. They could learn at their own pace. So they were very happy. Basically, they were very happy with the system.
That is good to understand then. All right, perfect. Just to see what numbers are compared to what and how. Are there any questions from the audience? You can feel free to ask your questions in German, in French, in English, as you prefer. Please go ahead.
Yep.
Das heißt, die große Frage in der Produktion, wie lange hat das gedauert, um eine solche Lektion herzustellen? Yes. Has the effort you had to make, has that effort increased, and how high was that effort? That was the first question.
It took a lot of time because I had to study the methodology to create micro lecture from scratch. Because basically, we did a survey of all the studies in the area of microlearning. And no studies gave us a hint on how to create the micro lecture. So we had to invent the process. And this took a lot of time. So what I did is that I leveraged my knowledge of software engineering. As you know, in software, we build systems with components, right? So I thought about the way I would build components lecture. And I reused my knowledge of software engineering to build the small lecture, the micro lecture. But still, this took a lot of time. I would say it took me at least a month to just find the right way to create the macro lecture. And after that, of course, the time you need is to actually create the lecture. Like if you would create a video or whatever, it takes time. It takes time, of course. So to give you an idea, I'll be honest with you. To give you an idea, to transform a 2 hours lecture, it took me 3 days, 4 days, approximately at the beginning. Now I've got some habits, I've got the process, it's much faster. And also, one thing which is very important, sometimes you have vendors of micro-learning systems who just said, get your PowerPoint slides and then we just do some micro-learning with the slides. It's just a joke. It's just a joke because the way you teach using micro-learning is very, very different. Why it is very different? It is different because when you create a micro-lecture, it's 3 minutes. You have no time to repeat yourself. You have no time to repeat the context. So you need your micro-lecture to just target exactly the skills you'd like to teach. And in the prerequisites of this micro-lecture, you have all the micro-lecture that explain the concept that come before. And all this organization, it's complicated. So in my methodology that I wrote down, in the methodology, we have to design what's called the repository of concepts, in which you just, I would say, pinpoint all the concepts that you need to teach. And then after that, you have a micro lecture and you say, this one will teach this concept using this one and this one. Okay, now you have a map. And then it means that you need other micro lecture to teach this concept and this concept, which are prerequisites to the new one. Okay, so this is the methodology that we implemented, or the process. And now I'm quite easy with that. I mean, I could, basically what I would say is to transform a 2 hours lecture, I would need a day, maybe. A day, yeah.
Can we just get to your second question very quickly, please? And a very short answer from your side so we can stick to the schedule, please.
I'll try.
Thank you. No worries.
Second question, basically, this was for your class or one class. Imagine, or what is your prediction if you would say the whole university life would change to something like that? How would students along with this improvement still?
By getting along, what do you mean exactly? Would they be happy with that? Or would they accept that?
If you imagine you have 20 classes you follow at university, 20 classes to teach microless,
Yeah.
would this be successful?
Would it be successful, let me just repeat the question for those watching from home, would it be successful if all the classes were taught using micro-learning? So can micro-learning technically replace traditional learning?
Blended.
That's a very, very difficult question. First of all, because no one has done that before. Our experiment translating a university course into microlearning is the first one. I've never seen any publication on that. So I have a publication in preparation where we will publish that. No one has done that before. The only application of microlearning so far are in the business, in the continuing education. No university teaching has been done so far with microlearning. So the question is, would that work at scale? You know, with all the lecture given with this system? I'm not sure. I'm not sure because if you have, I mean, hundreds of micro lecture a day with math, physics, IT, German, French, or whatever, then you'll get lost. So I'm not sure this would work at scale for university. This is what our main target is companies. Because companies are very precise training in mind. Or we diagnose that someone has some skill gap. Then we just target these skills with the system.
Also, just one thing also, what we observed is that in the learning strategy in the company, just having digital training is not enough. You also have to practice. So usually what we suggest is to have blended learning. So with micro-learning, but also maybe with a mentoring strategy, with people who can practice what you learn. So it's a mix between micro-learning, digital learning, and physical and practical learning.
Yeah, sure, sure.
So blended learning is ultimately one way forward. We've also had a question from home. We've seen the question, and actually I think the question, which was about learning strategies, has been answered, especially also with regards to blended learning. Thank you to the two of you for your time, for your dedication. Continue to experiment, see where it leads us, and
We will.
We're happy to,
We will.
to follow up with you and see how you progress.
I'll tell you the next step. The next step is to watch the graph and to send the mail automatically to the learner. No one in the loop. So we will coach automatically the learner with the system.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time and dedication. Und wir switchen ganz, ganz schnell weiter zu PwC für unsere zweitletzte Session vor der Mittagspause. Halten